Dr. Bushra Khan, what's your superpower and how does that serve your mission to help others?
Oh, wow. We're getting straight to it. Okay, let's do this. I would say my superpower, which actually I knew from a very young age, but I didn't know how to position it until I was much older, is my energy. I have relentless energy. And especially if like if I kind of beautiful mind it and see through all the formulas and calculations and see through all the multiple opportunities, I can see through what the end goal is. And I have relentless energy and ambition to get to that place. And that energy also manifests in a lot of joy. That energy manifests in this, like, I'm going to get this shit done no matter what. So my superpower is energy and just that relentless, like, I'm going to do it no matter what. And I've been like this since I was little. But before, when I was little, it was, gosh, Bushra, you're too much. You're too loud. Now it's, gosh, Bushra, you do so much. How do you do it? So, of course, I've evolved, but that's, I would say that's right from the get-go.
Very nice. Flywheel leadership is about discovering and practicing the leadership systems that bring out the best in each of us and our teams. One thing that I took away from doing some research on your work is your comment about quote, I help teams move beyond task management to lead with vision, bravery, and kindness, end quote. Could you tell me a little bit more about what that means to you and how you help foster that?
Yeah. So most teams that I work with are very tech centric. So we're talking about the best of the best in manufacturing, nuclear, energy, IT, and they are very good at what they do. And what a lot of leaders are finding themselves in is that they were individual contributors and they were so good, right from, if you look at the psychological profile from when they were in high school, they were taking AP calculus and, organic chemistry at the age of 14, when the rest of us were struggling with like other courses. Like, these are brainiacs. Then they go to university, they really do well. They go on to their master's, their doctorate, and it's very heads down, let's get this done. And they're very intelligent. Then they find themselves in the workplace, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, they get promoted a bunch of times. And now it's like, wait, I am no longer just responsible for the project that I'm leading, but now I'm responsible for other human beings. Wait, what? I've had to do a little bit of teamwork in labs or a little bit of, group work in my MBA class, but I've never really needed to lead a team 9 to 5, 7 days a week or 5 days a week. So that is about, how do you now lead with that bravery? How do you still make really tough decisions, but with also kindness, that balance? And do you see through everything that needs to get done? Do you have that vision? And how do you communicate that vision?
I see that so much, where we throw.
I saw your for those who can't see us, Graham was like laughing and smirking as I was describing, because I imagine you have a lot of clients like that, right? And that's your superpower, is getting them to help them.
Certainly. And I see it so much where somebody is really good at executing on that job, whatever that means, whether that's sales, recruiting, doing the thing, engineering. I've worked with a lot of engineers, especially in my recruiting days, where that's exactly right. We throw the top people into those leadership roles, and a lot of times it's figure it out, right? And that is so true, where it is a different way of thinking. That
Sure.
people side, that team side, versus just having that domain expertise and applying that to your work. So thank you for sharing. Would love to hear a little bit more about you and your journey. Anything you'd like to share about that? And then, of course, your business with leading with BK. Would love to hear that too.
Yeah. So, I I'm a proud daughter of two immigrants. And especially if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, and maybe you resonate with this, Graham, is that the ideology was you go to school, you get good grades, you go to university, you work really, really hard, and then you find a good job, and then you're fine. And then you grow in that company for 20, 30 years, and, you retire and they come to your kids' weddings, and you go to each other's barbecues, and that has really just turned on its head. And when I started off my career, I had done well. I did start my job and I was working, but then I realized that I was doing something that other folks hadn't. I was getting promoted because of the rooms that I was being invited into. And although I had no reason to be in those rooms or in those conversations, but because I was having those relationships with folks who I knew how to position myself, and now I know I was pitching myself. Though I didn't know that's what I was doing, I was just talking about all the cool things I was doing, or just ideas that I had that, other people like, Bushra, you can't say that. That's the CEO of the company. I'm like, why not? So I think he'd be interested in knowing what's happening on the ground. He's in his cushy, comfortable office. He doesn't know what's happening over here. I think he'd want to know. No, Bushra, you can't say those things out loud. So I did say things out loud. But there was an art to saying things out loud. There is an art to communicating different messages to different stakeholders. And now I understand that's called situational judgment. Now I understand that's called emotional intelligence. Now I understand that's called organizational awareness. Those aren't things that we were taught in school. And I'm not going to even say that it's the job of a traditional school to teach you. I think, especially when you're older in it is, and that's the education side of it. It is the job of maybe post-secondary education institutional systems to expose you to that. But so that's where I come in. Leading with BK is because I teach in the MBA program at the University of Ottawa. I teach change management and leadership, and I'm seeing all these students come in. And then I only get 6 weeks with them, right? Because they have to take so many semester courses. I only get them for 6 weeks. And how can you teach someone the ins and outs of change management in 6 weeks? Or how do you teach someone the ins and outs of, behavioral leadership in 6 weeks? The answer is you can't. It's lifelong, and how you apply change management to one company is totally different for another company. That's why I launched Leading with BK, Leading with Bushra Khan, Leading with Bravery and Kindness, was how do we exactly address those? So companies bring me on to work with their teams around leadership performance and individual performance. And I know you've been doing a lot of that as well in Europe, in, of course, North America, but also in Asia. What are you noticing? What are some of the trends that you're noticing around leadership development in those, and are they different? I imagine they would be.
Yeah. I think there's certainly differences, but certainly areas where that people dynamic is so common, regardless of the location or culture, things of that nature as well, where it could be so interesting. You could expect to go to, let's just give an example, rural Germany, and think everything's going to be different. And it's actually quite similar to going to rural Indiana to a manufacturing plant. A lot of the same challenges with leadership, talent, things of that nature, right? But then, of course, the ways of working and things of that nature can be so widely different. My experience with Asia it was a lot more of working remotely with teams on the ground, doing a lot of recruitment, things of that nature, where it was much more of where we integrated them and trained them on our ways of working. So it would be a great partnership, but it wasn't the same level of leadership as where, you're walking across the office and working with somebody one-on-one, right? It was much more of a functional or executional manner. So I can't say I have the firsthand experience as much as what I think you're getting at, but I've seen it across Europe, especially, and similar to my Asia experience with South America as well, where there's certainly some fundamentals there. But the cultures are, of course, very different. One thing that really rings true for me is just that leader to team or leader to person connection that means the world to how things actually work with trusting one another and having an understanding of where we're coming from, so that leaders can really articulate what the vision and goals are. And those team members can actually understand in a place where they can execute on them. We'd love to hear any thoughts you have on that.
Yes to all of that you've said, and you're right. There's a lot of overlap of the issues, whether you're in rural Germany, although I've never been, or to Indiana. Also, I've never been. But what I notice is, like, let's say when I'm working in Taiwan, for example, or I'm working out in India or Bangladesh. What I am noticing is that a lot of the issues might be true, like, the client wants it done faster, but with half the cost, right? So that is, I think, universal. Right. Even when we eventually go to Mars, we're going to have that problem as well. Right. How can we twice as fast but half as cheap? But what I notice, and this has been another secret superpower, is how you execute it is quite different, because there's a lot of cultural aspects that influence how you work. So, for example, in and not all places in Canada and US, but let's say if you are in New York, or even say out in California, if you can't do something, you tell the client very kindly, but you tell them upfront, that's not going to happen. But let's say you're out in, say, Atlanta, or you are out in East Coast of Canada, or you're out in Taiwan, there's a little bit of like back and forth. Okay, we'll see if we can do it. I don't know. I'll get back to you. There's no direct, like, no to your face.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So especially if there's if it's a global company and you've got teams across the globe, that's where things get a little tricky. So going back to my example of Taiwan, I work with Google Taiwan and Google Atlanta. Similar in many ways, very different in many ways. But my Google Taiwan team has their counterparts out in California. You better believe California is saying, like, oh, if you can't do it, just say no to your boss. And the Taiwanese are like, no, that's not something we can do. Or in Taiwan, being very good at your work is a sense of pride. It's a sense of being. Whereas in North America, we have we're addressing the burnout culture very differently than they are in Asia. Not that Asian, in different parts of the world are not suffering from burnout, but the way we address it, the way we solve it is very different ways. So that's been, again, accidentally, I found myself in this space where it's like, oh, because I'm a third culture kid, meaning I was born and raised in Canada, but I had an Asian household. I learned to navigate multiple contexts at any given time. So having that, again, stakeholder management, I didn't realize I was doing that at age 7.
Yeah.
Like from such a young age, I'm like, okay, I have, prayers to go to on a Saturday, but I also have a birthday party at a bowling arena, but I also have to study for a test. How do I do it all? And you better believe it, Graham, I did it all, and I still do it all. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that perspective. You made me think of a few things, Bushra. When it comes to, regardless of where in the world, it's still, a lot of it comes down to how we treat people, how we relate to them, and then how do we truly involve them in our team. So whether they're, to your point, at a remote team in India, or they're sitting in your office, or remote in North America, how do you actually bring them in to your world and involve them and really embrace them as a team member? I mean, I've seen it so many times with offshore teams or remote teams where it's just, here, just do this, just do the work. And it's a whole different story versus, hey, let's show you how we do it. This is our way of working. This is our expectations, all that. And it's just a whole different ballgame when you actually take the time to bring them into your world. And a few episodes ago, somebody had really mentioned that concept of bring them into your world, which I love the way that sounds. So
Yeah, absolutely. And also I would add one more, which you were touching on, is explain the expectation, but also explain the why,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Explain and there's this pushback from some folks, and it's also based on the leadership they've experienced, is why do I need to explain the why? Like, I'm just saying it,
Yeah.
get it done. Like, kind of the, if as long as you're under my roof,
Yeah.
you're going to do as I
Right.
say, right?
Right.
There's a little bit of that. And sure, trust the hierarchy. There is a lot of power in that, right? Um, but if you get the opportunity to explain even some of the why, you have people see the vision. And when people buy into the vision, they are inspired, right? This all comes back to emotional intelligence. Are you self aware enough? And I'm speaking directly to leaders right now. Are you self aware enough to understand why you are doing what you are doing, what motivates you, right? What's holding you back? But what motivates you might not be the same thing that motivates someone else, right? So take a moment, get to know what motivates this other person, figure out what drives them, and then can you tap into that and bring them into your world? I love that you said that. And a couple of practical tips. Sorry, the professor in me is of
No, I
course
love
coming
it.
out. Some practical tips in doing that is, number one, really like take note of their whys, and it could be just keeping a notebook where you write down, okay, Graham recently really lit up when he went on this trip to rural Germany, and he really enjoyed XYZ and this part, and just kind of keep asking why. Oh, okay. Graham enjoyed his trip, his work trip in rural Germany because he saw the camaraderie of the team. Okay. So that's what is really important to Graham, is a sense of belonging. Okay, so when now I'm communicating the vision to Graham, saying like, hey, Graham, I know you probably don't need to know this whole backstory, but I want to bring you in because I know this is valuable for you, and you're a really key player to this mission, right? And at that point, Graham's face lights up, because that's what's important to Graham, is that sense of belonging. But it might be completely different for Bushra, right? Bushra might want to see um, how what she does is connected to the greater outcome. So maybe mapping out, Bushra, when you do this part of your task, it actually helps our entire team's OKR, our key metric performances, right? And mapping that out. So then Bushra's eyes light up. So always trying to figure out the why when you're bringing people in.
I love that. It all starts with why, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bushra, could you walk me through an example of where you've worked with a team and you've got the situation up front, whatever they're going through, whatever they're really looking for you to help with, those challenges, problems, however you want to say it, and then what kind of process did you work with them on, and how did that end up? Would love to kind of hear a story of some of
Yeah.
the real stuff you've worked with.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that question. So people, and I'm going to actually flip it back to you, because I'm curious to know how you approach it, because you and I, there's a lot of overlap in what we do. So my approach is, first of all, I ask a lot of open-ended questions. What are your team's goal for this year? What, if you had a magic wand for 2026, what would you like to address? What has worked in the past? What has not? And a lot of times I'll get very surface level answers like, my team needs to be better at presenting. Okay, tell me more. Oh, when they're in a meeting, they stumble a lot and they don't know how to do good presentation. So they need presentation skills. I'm like, okay. So then I start asking for concrete evidence. I'm like, okay, can you describe a time when someone on your team presented really well and they got kudos for it, or they were able to move forward with that decision or that project? And then they go ahead and give me the example. Okay. Then I'll say, can you give me a time when someone didn't do well? And what it really comes down to, it's not presentation skills, but it's about storytelling. So it's not about they get nervous when they get up on front and they can't speak loudly, because that's what they were telling me right in the beginning, is that they don't know how to do slide decks, or they don't know how to present or speak loudly, but rather it's the storytelling. And a lot of times when we speak, we go from once upon a time, there was, a prince and princess, or there were these characters, and then we kind of go from the beginning to the end. But if you're presenting to higher management, executive teams, you got to bluff it, bottom line up front. You got to kind of flip it on the head, give the solution, give the recommendation right at top, then break it down. There's a lot of different schemas, right? For example, Minto pyramid, give the bottom line at top, and then say, here are the 3 evidence, topics, and then here's all the data at the bottom. But a lot of times people start with from here, and then people are bored, or they're rolling their eyes, and they lose the people in the presentation. So by asking these kind of investigatory evidence-based questions, and what I do is, it's called behavioral interviewing. I find out that it's not actually presentation skills they're lacking. Rather, they don't know how to storytell. Rather, they don't know how to present the bottom line up front. And that's what we work on, is the strategy. It's less about how do you speak in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do it? Like, what's your process in getting to the crux of what your clients need?
So very similar in what you're talking about. So you were talking about why as in motivations earlier, or that kind of thing. I think of it very similar in a different kind of why, the why of digging deeper, right? Like when you think of in management or manufacturing, you think of the 5 whys, like continuing to ask why until you get to the root cause. To me, it goes back to root cause on what are you actually trying to accomplish, right? And I think a lot of times you start asking those questions, and there is either a very clear goal and why we're actually trying to drive a certain behavior or whatever it may be. And sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's just, this is how I do things, and I don't really know what I'm trying to accomplish by expecting, in your example, better speaking or better communication, better storytelling. Well, it's like, what are we trying to accomplish here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's what it all comes down to, is what are we trying to either improve or achieve? And we have to answer that question with shared clarity across the team that's involved before we start trying to make changes or make decisions or communicate as leaders on, this is the way we're going to do it. It's like, well, why? Like, why do we want to do this?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I look at it.
I just learned 2 new words recently, and I've been using it all the time. One is, if you don't have that clarity, what you're talking about, Graham, 2 things are going to happen. Word salad is just a bunch of words.
Yep.
Just like being tossed around. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
We'll say like word salad, disruption, word salad, innovation, word salad, synergy.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yep.
stop. So what is it that you're trying to get at? And number 2 is, especially with AI, and I am very pro AI. I'm very, very pro AI. If you do use it well.
Mm-hmm.
And the dangers of not using it well is that then you get slop. That's another word I learned. AI slop,
Yep.
data slop, right? So it's like, what is it that you're trying to say? Like, we're all so busy. Please cut down you're asking me to do mental gymnastics during a presentation. Get to the point.
Yep.
Like, what is it that you want? Please be clear in your ask. Please be clear in your actions. So word salad and slop. Those are the 2 words I've been using all the time.
I love it. So it really stands out, Bushra, as you're talking about this, just how important as ever, is simplicity and clarity with whether it's your questions or your message you want to get across. And I think so many of us are so worried about making it sound good and sound smart and sound different and all those things. We actually do end up watering it down a lot of times if we don't think it through it clearly enough on the front end to just really get down to what is it that we're trying to get across. That's exactly right. I love it. So when you're talking with teams, like what really is the most fulfilling aspect of your work?
Oh my gosh, when they have their aha moments. especially, and there's always at least one or two people who are kind of cross-armed, and it's like, I don't even know why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm only here because I've been told I have to be here. And so the most fulfilling is getting those people who are resistant to change, having that light bulb go off and be like, oh, that's what you're talking about? Okay, yeah, I can get behind that, sure. And so whether I do a strategy session or a leadership workshop or, even in my university classes, so it's really, I definitely am one of the most privileged, luckiest person in the world because I get to work with people who are still early in their careers, right? So they're year 2 to 5 within their careers. And I get to work with senior leaders who've been in their careers for about 20, 30 years. So like, how cool is it that I get to see the newer Gen Z coming into the workforce, and then the older millennials, even like older folks that on how they're managing their careers. And I would say there's always one or two people in the room who is like, I don't want to be here. I'm only here because I have to be here. And I always, always, always say, give me 15 to 20 minutes. If you don't want to be here afterwards, by all means, please leave. I won't tell anyone. No one's going to know on your end. So please. And I also do a no tech, low tech approach where if you're in my session, we're turning off the laptops and your cell phones are in your bag, like not even in your pocket, not even on your table. Like we're doing a no tech, low tech, and it's on me as the professor. It's on me as the facilitator. It's on me as the presenter to keep them so engaged, to keep their brains so engaged that they're not even missing their phones. And I do have a really high retention rate. I'm happy to report that. I have a really great ratemyprofessor.com ratings. My students fill it out. So I'm happy to share that. So it's that aha moment is the best part.
That's great. And I love when you're talking about just engaging people to where that, first of all, they're not worried about what you're telling them not to be on as far as phones or whatever. And you're making it engaging enough to where there is that switch. Like it sounds like you're taking it as a challenge to really connect with those that are the most negative or challenging of whatever you're trying to talk with them about. So that's really cool.
And I want to also say is that when people are in workshops or training sessions or whatever may be, they're taking time, like hours or days out of their work to be in the session, whether they self-selected or they were told they have to be. Either way, they're there, which means that their email inbox is just going unanswered, or they're doing something that is taking away from their daily jobs. So it's our job as professors, as trainers, as presenters, as facilitators to make it worth their time. And let's be honest, most training suck. Most trainers, and oh my gosh, and of course we have our training feedback at the end of the session, but I get them to give me feedback, like a quick plus delta, plus what went really well. Delta is the Greek sign of change. What can I change right now with a given solution? So don't say, oh, Bushra, I wish we had pink flamingos in your session, but rather, hey, Bushra, this layout, the way you have the tables laid out is not conducive to our learning. Can we actually change it like this? Like giving people that opportunity, like real time opportunity about 4 or 5 times a day to give you plus delta. That's how you're buying trust right away. I don't even wait for the feedback evaluations at the end. I encourage them, but if they're providing me feedback in those evaluations that I haven't heard throughout the day, that's on me. That's a bad on my part.
Yeah, that's great. Really kind of going back to your leadership work with, various organizations. Bushra, what are you seeing in this? Every conversation has to have something about AI in it, right? So what are you seeing change across leadership Or what are you seeing with leaders that are needing to learn on their end, not just their teams, but what do they need to learn in this new age we're in?
Yeah. So AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Like we got to get with the program. AI, the robots, they are not taking over. They are not taking over our jobs, but emotionally intelligent leaders who are very good and know how to use AI, they are going to replace us. So AI can do things in matter of seconds that would take me or you or anyone days to do, right? So going back to that example where you're saying that that word salad, that slop, that people don't need convoluted sentences and long paragraphs because, first of all, most, maybe not all, most people are already using AI to write our emails and our documents and our reports and our analysis, right? What people need now is trust. So what if Graham is presenting something in front of me? Do I trust that Graham has done his due diligence to make sure it's accurate, it's clear, it's evidence-based, right? So that word slop or word salad, it shouldn't not be a problem because it is. AI is producing a lot of crappy outcomes, but people who are emotionally intelligent and aware and strategic, they know how to take that information and make it clear and concise. So what I'm seeing in a lot of my, and that's why, Graham, I'm going to say this, that people like you and I, we are needed more than ever now. And we are not going to be out of a job because we are in the business of humans. We are in the business of human-centric leadership. And that's what's been, it's going to be more and more the number one signal of success. And if you look at all of these future of work reports, or you look at like the McKinsey reports or the World Economic Forum, the future of jobs, the top 10 skills are more and more turning into like critical thinking, decision making, emotional intelligence, like because so much information is coming at us. How do we cut through the weeds? How do we cut through the crap and make solid decisions that are good and ethical? Like ethical decision making is going to be a really big number one factor as well.
Certainly. Bushra, when you're working with a team, when do you know it's not going to go well? Like, clearly, like everybody's engaged, excited, energized. You probably have some positivity on how it's going to go. But what are you seeing in those leaders where you just know that they're either going to fight what you're telling them or they're just not bought in? Like, what are those things, and how does that translate into when you hear years later or months later where they're at? Things not changing, not improving.
Yeah. So I'm happy to report that I've only had 2 of those examples. And if you are not changing, and if, you can bring them to the mountain, but they still got to climb themselves, right? And you will be stuck. Right after a while, and the 2 people that I'm thinking about, they have been stuck in their roles for a really long time, and they do such good work. The 2 individuals that I'm thinking about they do such good work. They produce such great results. They are clear in their thinking. They work around the clock. Not that I'm saying you should be working around the clock, but what I mean is that they're very committed. They see the vision and all of that. But if you are not self-aware, and if you're not understanding that you are making other people's lives harder, that you are the said micromanager that every millennial has on their TikTok. Like, I don't know what your social media algorithm is, but my every second video is, how to avoid a micromanager or how to deal with a micromanager. And if you are not self-aware that you are that micromanager, it's that you are the problem, right? So oftentimes I'll have those conversations like, hey, listen, I see that you're not bought in. And no, I'm bought in, Bushra. Why would you say that? And I'm fine. I'm like, okay, What I'm observing is that you may be saying the words you're bought in, but your behaviors and actions are not indicating you're bought in. And that's okay, because ultimately you're choosing to make this decision. Please know that even when I, as an outside expert coming in, if I'm struggling to meet you accurately where you're at, then imagine what others may be experiencing. Because the two individuals that I'm thinking about is that if you are not exact in rephrasing what they've said, or exact in what they've asked you to do, or exact in relaying the information that they would have wanted to, there's a lot of anger and a lot of mistrust, right? And I imagine, not that I'm a psychologist, but it really goes back to when we were kids, right? And I've done a little bit of work with them to kind of find out what their upbringing was like. And these two individuals had similar upbringings where if they were not exact in how to do things at home, they were punished. Okay. So it really does go back to our inner child, where did you have a lot of flexibility to make mistakes and be celebrated when you figured out those mistakes? Or were you punished for making those mistakes and that opportunity was yanked away from you? And that manifests still when we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So that's, so I do, and I don't say, hey, we're going to do some inner child work right now, because I'll get a big eye roll. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But it really comes back to, like, tell me where this discomfort is coming from. What do you see, Graham? Like, when people are pushing back or they're not bought in, how do you get them to meet you where you're at?
Yeah, I think a lot of it does come back to what you said, as far as challenging them in a productive way of, like, hey, this is what I'm observing from you, and the way you're showing up, the way you're acting, the way you're taking in this information, and clearly not bought into what I'm saying or what someone else is saying. And then asking them a little bit more about the why behind that. Like, what do you not like about it? What's not landing with you? What do you not agree with? When you go to apply this in your group, your division, whatever, like, why do you feel like this is not realistic for you? Right. And seeing that.
Amazing. Could you repeat that last part? I had just lost you, where you said, when you apply this in your group.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. When you apply this in your group, like this thought process or this idea, like, why is this a challenge for you and your group specifically? Like, making them tell you the specifics in their world, getting away from the theoretical side of it and actually getting down to, hey, I can tell you don't really like this, you don't agree. Why? Like, let's talk about your specifics and kind of see what that looks like. And that's where you kind of
No, I'm fine, Graham. I'm fine.
Right.
I don't have a problem with this. Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. Bushra, what is one thing you've changed your mind on over the span of your life or career?
Oh, so this is in my 2026 vision board. So I set my intentions for every year, and I had an aha moment myself last year, is that this is the first year where I am not looking to aggressively scale up in my business. So I launched my business in 2024, and I have I don't know if you follow Elise Myers on social media. She's really funny. You should follow her. And she has this thing where she says that, how hard can this be, Jean? Right? It's like, how hard can this be? I'll just get it done. And I have been like that since I was young, because my parents were like that, and they still are like that. And I've always just chased like one thing after another. Like, okay, I'm going to be pregnant with my second kid. Yeah, I can start a doctorate. How hard can that be? Right. While then the pandemic hit, but then I'm like, yeah, let's just buy a house. The prices are really low. Like, sure, we can move during COVID while I'm doing my doctorate and still teaching 4 classes a semester. Like, how hard can it be? And and let me tell you, humans are so smart. Humans are resilient. Everyone figures it out. But my big thing, where my thinking, where it's shifted is, why am I doing this? And am I happy? Right. And I've always had a very good life and I've always been really happy. And then I realized last year, I'm like, I think I'm quite happy. Like I do want to grow my business this year, but instead of it growing at 3x, I think I'm okay with growing at 1.5x, which even to someone else listening, they'll be like, wait, what? You want to grow, it that much more? But for me, that's actually taking it slow. So not everyone's hard is the same. What is hard for you, what is challenging for you is not the same for me. And vice versa. What brings me joy, what brings me happiness is not going to be the same for you. So that's been a big eye-opening moment for me this year.
Thank you for sharing, Bushra.
Thank you.
What have we missed that we should have talked about?
Soft skills are not soft. We're going to call them strategic skills. Out with the word soft. Yes. Oh, I'm getting a hand clap.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
nothing soft about being adaptable and a clear communicator. There's nothing soft about making really hard decisions with competing priorities, with competing stakeholders. There's nothing soft about being kind and getting people to say yes because they trust you, not because you're manipulating them. There's nothing soft about any of that. It's all strategic. We're calling them strategic skills. That's the one thing we forgot. And I want to repeat, the robots aren't taking over. People who are emotionally intelligent, know how to use AI, they're taking over. Those are the two things. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for hitting those. And I don't remember the moment where it kind of struck, but the soft skills are the harder, and not hard skills, but the harder skills. And in a lot of cases, some of the most brilliant people have challenges with working with people, right? So sure. It's kind of one of those things where it's like the soft stuff gets labeled as soft, right? But a lot of times that is the real hard work at hand. That's
it.
What do you want those you've worked with to say about your impact on them?
Well, I'll tell you what they have been saying is, damn, I wish this was longer. I wish, instead of it being a 3-4 day session, I wish it was like a 5-day session. Because we play a lot, we laugh a lot, we talk about some serious, deep stuff a lot. What they've also been saying is that, so people hire me for 3 main reasons. One, everything I do is evidence-based, especially with the types of people I work. They're very, very smart. So I cannot just come into a space with things I just Googled or YouTubed off. Like, it has to be evidence-based. Number 2 is I have a lot of energy. I bring in a lot of energy. You do not need to match my energy, but you will eventually, because I'm creating that psychological safe space where people are feeling more free to be silly. And when you are silly, a part of your amygdala is calmed, your fear center is calmed down in your brain. So then your prefrontal cortex can really absorb and learn. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3 is everything I do is bite-sized strategies. So what we are learning in the morning, we're going to scaffold and roll that into the afternoon. And then we're going to scaffold and roll that into day 2, day 3. So then when you do return back into your workplace, it's not something stressful has happened and you've now reverted back to unproductive behaviors, but rather, oh, yes, I remember in Bushra's session, we had learned about, how to calm the amygdala, the fear center in our brain by doing mirror, validate, empathize, right? You mirror what someone is saying, you validate what they are saying, and then you empathize, and then you ask one open-ended question that moves them towards a yes, right? So I use a lot of frameworks. what the best thing people have been saying about my sessions or my work is that everything we are learning in Bushra's workshops and sessions are applicable for outside of the work. I am now talking to my teenage daughter who I haven't had a proper conversation with. My partner and I have been seeking therapy, but the two things that Bushra taught me yesterday, I tried it with my partner and we finally had a great conversation after years. Another one was, I am a leader in my religious community, and I have a really hard time saying no because everyone is a volunteer, but I seem to be volunteering a lot more than the other volunteers. And how do you say no to other volunteers? And I taught them, right? Like, and you coach them in these conversations. So I would say the how they apply it outside of the workplace has been the most valuable.
Very nice.
The internet's okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. I just got a little message on top. Yeah.
How can listeners best find you or follow you in your mission?
Oh, thank you for asking. Please follow me, add me on LinkedIn, add me on Instagram. It's Leading with BK. Leading with B like Bushra, K like Khan, or Leading with BK, B like Bravery, K like Kindness. Or you can find me on my website, www.leadingwithbk.com.
Very good. Dr. Bushra Khan, Leading with BK. Thank you for sharing today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Graham. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.